The stars were burning cold when Captain Sung first saw them, not the normal stars that humanity had mapped for 200 years. These stars moved. They danced in patterns that should not exist, forming symbols in the void that hurt to look at. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," said HFY from her station. The chief engineer's hands moved quickly across her controls, but Sung could see the tremor in her fingers. It's coming from everywhere at once." The screen flickered to life. A being stood before them, tall and silver, with eyes that glowed like dying suns. Its form seemed to shift between solid and light, as if it could not decide what shape to hold. "I am commander of the Empire," the being said. Its voice came not from speakers but from the air itself. "You have been found. We have watched your species crawl from your small world. We have seen you reach for the stars with your primitive hands. Now, your time of ascension has come." Sung stood slowly. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, was humanity's finest achievement. But looking at the being on the screen, he felt like a child with a toy boat facing an ocean. "We are honored by your contact," Sung said carefully. "Humanity welcomes peaceful relations with—" "Peace?" His laugh was like thunder. "There is no peace. There is only order. For 200,000 years we have brought order to the chaos of the galaxy. 847 species kneel before us. They know us as what we are. They call us gods." The screen changed. Sung saw worlds, thousands of them. On each world, beings of every shape and size bowed before massive temples. The temples bore the same symbol he had seen in the stars. On every world, the people sang the same prayer in different tongues. "You see," continued, "they worship us because we are worthy of worship. We can move stars, we can birth worlds, we can erase civilizations with a thought." The being leaned forward. "You will join them, you will kneel, or you will cease to exist." HFY made a small sound. Sung looked at her, then back at the screen. "We need time to consider," he said. 30 days, replied. "We are generous. We give you time to understand. Send your leaders, send your ships, come to our home, see what gods can do. Then choose, kneel and ascend, or resist and end." The transmission cut. The stars stopped moving. They were just stars again. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then HFY whispered, "Captain, did you see their ship?" "What ship?" "Exactly." She pulled up the sensor data. "No ship, no station, nothing. The transmission came from empty space. How do you transmit from nothing?" Sung felt cold. "Send everything back to Earth, all of it." The message reached Earth in 3 days. The response took 2 more. Earth's governments argued and fought. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to fight. Most were simply terrified. In the end, they decided to send Sung's ship to see, to understand, to witness what gods could do. The journey took 2 weeks. Sent coordinates. The Horizon's Edge followed them to a region of space that appeared empty on all scans. Then HFY input the final code, and suddenly it was there. A world that should not exist. It was not a planet. It was not a station. It was something between, something beyond. A sphere of impossible size covered in structures that reached into space like fingers. The structures glowed with light that changed color every moment. Around the sphere, 3 suns orbited, not the sphere orbiting the suns orbiting the sphere. "That's impossible," HFY breathed. "You can't make suns orbit anything. The mass required would be divine," said a new voice. They all turned, stood in their ship, inside their ship. It had simply appeared as if it had always been there. "I am your guide," the being said. "I will show you what awaits those who ascend. Come." Sung had no choice. He followed. HFY came with him. They touched the wall and the wall opened. Not a door, just an opening where there had been solid metal. They stepped through and found themselves on the surface of the sphere. Thousands of beings walked the streets, aliens of every type. Some had 6 legs, some floated, some were made of crystal, all wore robes marked with the symbol. The faithful, their guide said. They come from across the galaxy to serve, to worship, to be blessed. A procession passed by. Aliens carried a platform. On the platform sat a single. The aliens sang as they walked. Their song was beautiful and terrible. It spoke of masters and servants, of gods and mortals, of an order that would never end. 847 species, the guide continued. All found their way to us. All chose to kneel. All live in peace under our guidance. What if they hadn't chosen to kneel? Sung asked quietly. The guide stopped. It turned to face him. For a moment, Sung saw something in its eyes, not anger, confusion, as if the question had never been asked before. Then they would not exist, the guide said simply. To resist the divine is to embrace nothing. This is known. This has always been known. They were led to a great hall. Inside, Commander waited on a throne of light. Around him, others stood like statues. Below, hundreds of aliens prostrated themselves. "Welcome, humans," said. His voice filled the hall. "You have seen, you have witnessed. What is your answer?" Sung looked at the bowing aliens. He looked at the on their thrones. He looked at Haywan, who stared at everything with an engineer's eyes. "We need more time," Sung said. 15 days remain, replied. "Use them wisely. The choice is simple: join eternity or face oblivion." As they were led away, Haywan leaned close to Sung. "Captain," she whispered, "I've been scanning everything, the throne, the walls, the very air. And it's all technology, ancient technology, incredibly advanced but still just technology." She paused. "Gods don't need machines, Captain, they just don't." Sung said nothing, but in his mind a simple thought formed, a dangerous thought, a human thought. If they were truly gods, why did they need to prove it so badly? Wu had studied alien life for 15 years. She had examined bacteria from ice moons and fungi from desert worlds. She had catalogued 300 species across 50 planets, but nothing had prepared her for this. "They're all believers," she said, reviewing her scans of the alien crowds. "Every single species we've encountered here. True believers, not pretending, not afraid. They genuinely think they are gods." Wu Jin, the Marine commander, checked his weapon for the third time. They were guests, but he did not trust gods who needed guards. Brainwashing. "I checked for that." Wu pulled up her neural scans. "No implants, no chemical manipulation, no psychic influence. They just believe." Sung watched the street below their quarters. More processions passed. More songs rose to the artificial sky. "Then why do they believe?" "Because they've never seen anything else," Haywan said from her workstation. She had been working for 8 hours straight, barely sleeping. "Captain, I've been going through humanity's records. Every species they encountered was either pre-space flight or very early space age. The most advanced had barely colonized their own moons. So imagine you're a species that just invented radio. Suddenly, beings appear who can move stars and reshape worlds. What would you think they were?" Sung understood. "We're different. Yes, we've had faster-than-light travel for 2 centuries. We've colonized 40 systems. We've seen wonders and built them ourselves. We know what's possible and what's not." Haywan turned to face him. "To us, they're just very advanced aliens, but to everyone else, they're gods." A chime sounded. Their guide had arrived to take them to the morning ceremony. This time, it was High Oracle who would speak, the highest religious authority of the temple was carved from a single diamond the size of a mountain. Inside, 10,000 aliens gathered. They represented 300 species, all dressed in their ceremonial robes, all bearing the mark of the divine. High Oracle appeared in a flash of light. The crowd gasped and bowed. The oracle was older than the others, its silver skin marked with patterns that glowed softly. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Faithful ones," it said, "you have been chosen. Of all the countless species in the dark between stars, you were found worthy. You were elevated. You were saved from the chaos of ignorance and the pain of progress. Here, under our guidance, you know peace, you know purpose, you know love." The crowd began to chant. It was a sound that made Sung's skin crawl, not because it was wrong, but because it was so willing, so complete. "The new ones watch," continued, turning to where the humans stood. "They do not yet understand, they cling to their pride, they think themselves apart, but they will learn, all kneel, all join the eternal order." After the ceremony, they were granted a private audience. Sat on a simple chair now, its divine light dimmed. It looked almost ordinary. "You have questions," the oracle said. "Ask. We hide nothing from those who will soon join us." Wu Jin stepped forward before Sung could stop him. The Marine had been quiet for days, watching everything with hard eyes. Now he spoke. "If you're gods," Wu Jin said slowly, "why do you need ships?" The silence was absolute. Stared at Wu Jin. Other in the room stirred. One made a sound like breaking glass. "What?" the oracle finally said. "Ships, stations, temples, machines." Wu Jin gestured around. "Gods don't need tools, they just do, but you use technology. Advanced technology, yes. Ancient technology, certainly. But still technology. So either you're not gods or gods are just another word for really old aliens with really good machines." Sung held his breath. You did not question gods. Not here. Not surrounded by 10,000 believers in the divine themselves. But did not strike them down. Instead, it looked confused. It turned to the other, who looked equally lost. "The tools are," the oracle began, then stopped. The divine manifests through." It could not finish. For 200,000 years, no one had questioned. No subject species had ever thought to ask why gods needed starships and temples and tools. They had simply accepted. "We manifest our will through sacred instruments," finally said, but its voice lacked certainty. "This is how it has always been." "Has it?" Wu asked quietly. She had been studying the temple walls. "These patterns, I've seen them before. They're not religious. They're programming, machine code, incredibly sophisticated but still code." "Enough," one of the others stepped forward. "You will not speak such blasphemy, the faithful." "Aren't here," Hayone interrupted. "It's just us. So tell me, when was the last time your people invented something new, not discovered, not inherited, invented?" The stared at her. "That's what I thought," Hayone said softly. Rose, its light returned, bright and angry. "You will leave. You will return to your ship. You have 13 days to make your choice. Choose wisely, choose obedience, choose life." They were escorted out by guards who appeared from nowhere. Silent who touched them, and suddenly they were back on their ship. Teleportation, Sung thought, or something that looked like it. As soon as they were alone, Wu Jin spoke. "Did you see their faces?" "They were confused," Wu said. "Genuinely confused, as if the question never occurred to them." "Because it didn't," Hayone said. She was already at her station pulling up data. "Captain, I've been analyzing everything. Their ships, their stations, their technology. It's all standardized. All identical patterns. Nothing new, nothing innovative. Just the same designs repeated across light years and eons." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying they haven't invented anything in thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years. They maintain, they preserve, they operate, but they don't create." Sung sat down heavily. "And the subject species? All worship technology they don't understand, all accept what they're given. None advance beyond the point of first contact." Haywon's voice was grim. "They don't allow progress. They can't. If their subjects advance too far, they might start asking questions. Questions like Wu Jin asked." The communication panel chimed. "Earth was calling," Sung answered. Sang Ho, the UN ambassador, appeared on screen. His face was tired. "Captain, Earth has made its decision. And we will not kneel." Sang Ho's voice was firm despite his exhaustion. "The council debated for 3 days. Some wanted surrender, some wanted war. In the end, we chose ourselves. Whatever these are, gods or ancients or something else, we will not worship them. We will not trade our freedom for their order. Sung felt something in his chest, pride perhaps, or terror. They'll come for us. We know Admiral So-min is preparing the defense fleet. It's not much against star movers, but it's what we have. Sang-ho leaned forward. Sung, find their weakness. There has to be one. Gods don't get angry when questioned. Gods don't need armies. Gods don't threaten. Find it. The transmission ended. Sung looked at his crew. You heard him. We have 13 days. Use them. Outside their ship, the impossible world spun. 3 suns danced in their ordained orbits. 10,000 species sang their prayers. And somewhere in the depths of the divine empire, ancient machines hummed their eternal songs, maintained by beings who had forgotten how they were built. Humanity had asked a simple question, why? And the gods had no answer. The Judgment Fleet appeared in Earth's sky 7 days early. They came without warning, simply existing where nothing had existed before. 50 massive vessels, each the size of a small moon, arranged in a perfect sphere around Earth. On the ground, people looked up and saw death. Admiral So-min stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, the Indomitable. Around her, 200 Earth vessels assembled, ships built for exploration, retrofitted with weapons. Against the fleet, they looked like insects facing dragons. Ma'am, her tactical officer said quietly, they're powering weapons. Hold position, So-min ordered. She had been a physicist before becoming a soldier. She understood the energy readings she was seeing. 1 ship could vaporize a continent. 50 could crack a planet. Do not fire unless fired upon. A transmission came through. Commander appeared, as beautiful and terrible as always. Humanity, it said, your time has expired. You were given a choice. You chose unwisely. Now you will see what happens to those who defy the divine order. Your world will become a lesson. 847 species will watch. They will see what resistance brings. So-min straightened her uniform. This is Admiral So-min of Earth Defense. We speak for humanity. We will not surrender. We will not kneel. If you want our world, come and take it. Looked surprised, then it laughed. Brave words from insects. Your largest weapon could barely scratch our hull. Your greatest science is our ancient history. You have nothing that can harm us. Then why are you angry? So-min asked. The question hung in the space between fleets. We are not angry, said, but its voice suggested otherwise. We are disappointed. You could have ascended. You could have found peace. Instead, you choose extinction. We choose ourselves, So-min replied. That's more than your subjects can say. The transmission cut. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one of the ships fired. The beam was pure white light. It struck the moon and carved a crater 10 miles deep in seconds. The display of power was absolute. The message was clear. So-min waited for panic, for her fleet to break, for Earth to broadcast surrender. Instead, a young voice cut through on the command channel. Admiral, I'm in their network. What? So-min looked at her communications officer, who nodded confirmation. I hacked their communications 3 days ago when they first appeared. Been digging around. Ma'am, you need to see this. Data flooded So-min's screens. Protocols, battle plans, ship schematics, and something else, something crucial. They're running a program, explained quickly. Everything they do follows predetermined protocols. First contact protocol, worship ceremony protocol, judgment protocol. It's all scripted. They have procedures for every situation they've ever encountered. So they've never encountered this situation. Species aren't supposed to refuse and then talk back. The protocol says, demonstrate power, receive surrender, but we're not surrendering. Their system doesn't have a step 3. So-min looked at the data. Was right. The ships were powerful beyond measure, but they were following ancient programming. Programs written millions of years ago for scenarios that had repeated unchanged for eons. Can we use this? Maybe. Their ships are connected to a central network. Everything is coordinated. If we can confuse the network. Do it. His fingers flew across his keyboard back on Earth. In orbit, So-Min activated her fleet-wide channel. All ships, we're not going to win through firepower, so we're going to cheat. Follow my lead and stay alive. She ordered her flagship forward, toward the fleet. The other ships followed. His voice returned. You attack, foolish, we will. We surrender, So-Min shouted suddenly. The fleet stopped. So-Min could see the massive weapons powering down. You surrender, sounded uncertain. Yes, we were wrong, we kneel. So-Min made her voice desperate. Please spare us. I seemed confused. The protocol, yes, surrender is accepted. You will be brought to. Attack pattern Delta, So-Min screamed. Every human ship fired at once. Not at the ships, but at the space around them. Missiles, projectiles, debris. They created a cloud of chaos. You dare's voice was thunder. You. So-Min cut her engines and let her ship drift, dead in space. The other human ships did the same. To the sensors, they looked disabled. What is this? Demanded. What are you doing? Something you don't have in your protocols, So-Min said. We're improvising. The fleet moved to surround the disabled human ships. Their weapons charged. And then every human ship that had played dead roared to life, engines at maximum, scattering in random directions. His fleet tried to respond, but they were too close to each other, too organized. Their formation was perfect, which meant it was predictable. Human ships wove between them like fish through a net. This is not, you cannot, was struggling. The protocols had no answer for prey that pretended to be weak, then scattered. All ships fire at will. But the ships hesitated. Their targeting computers sought permission from the network. The network checked protocols. The protocols had no clear instruction for enemies that ran instead of fought, that lied instead of challenged. In those few seconds of hesitation, Wu Jin arrived. His team had stolen a shuttle from there, small, barely armed but fast. He had been hiding behind Earth's moon, waiting. Now he shot forward, directly at one of the massive battleships. At the last second, he detonated his shuttle's reactor. The explosion was tiny compared to the battleship, a firecracker against a mountain, but the shuttle was inside the ship's defensive perimeter. The blast damaged nothing critical, but it triggered alarms across the network. Impossible, shouted. Your weapons cannot. Wasn't a weapon. Wu Jin's voice came over the radio from an escape pod. Just a suicide run. You have protocols for weapons. You have protocols for tactics. What's your protocol for someone who doesn't care about living? The fleet pulled back. So-Min could see them reforming, creating distance. They were regrouping, recalculating. You see it now, So-Min said. Your power is absolute, your technology is superior, but you're predictable, you follow rules, we don't. We adapt. We change. We do things that make no sense because sense is just another limitation. You have done nothing, said, but its voice lacked certainty. You damaged one ship, we have 50, you cannot win. We're not trying to win, So-Min replied. We're trying to survive, and we'll do anything to survive. Lie, cheat, sacrifice, adapt. Can you say the same, or do you need to check your protocols first? The fleet hung in space. Humanity's fleet scattered around them, too chaotic to target easily. On Earth, people watched their defenders dance with gods and refused to die cleanly. His next words came slowly. This is not how warfare is conducted. There are rules, honorable combat, divine judgment. There are no rules, So-Min said. That's what makes us dangerous. We're willing to do whatever it takes, even things you consider impossible or dishonorable, especially those things. Back on the Sung watched the battle through hacked feeds. Haewon worked beside him, digging deeper into their systems. Captain, she said suddenly, I found something, the source, where all their technology comes from. Show me. She pulled up schematics, a structure deep in the heart of the world, something ancient beyond measure, vast beyond comprehension. It's a machine, HFY whispered. A god machine, built millions of years ago by, I don't know, but they don't control it, they just use it. Everything they do, every power they have comes from this. Sung stared at the schematic. Can we reach it? Maybe if we're very lucky, and very stupid. Then let's be both. The god machine lived in the deep places of the world, buried beneath miles of sacred temples and divine monuments. Had spent 3 days studying the scans that HFY sent. 3 days of barely sleeping, barely eating, just staring at something that should not exist. It's not technology, she said over the encrypted channel. Not in any sense we understand. It's something else, something older. It processes information using principles we haven't discovered yet, maybe can't discover. Sung watched Min and his team prepare for their mission. 5 soldiers, each carrying minimal weapons and maximum courage. Can we interact with it? I don't know, maybe. It's been dormant for, checked her calculations, at least 100,000 years. They use it, but they don't communicate with it. They just input requests and receive outputs, like using a calculator without knowing mathematics. What happens if we wake it up? I have absolutely no idea. Min finished checking his equipment. He was young for a special forces commander, only 32, but he had the kind of calm that came from accepting death years ago. Captain, we're ready. You know this is probably suicide. Probably, Min smiled. But if we don't try, it's definitely extinction. I'll take probably over definitely. They left in a stolen maintenance craft, disguised to look like one of the thousands of service drones that kept the world running. This work had made it possible. The diplomat had spent weeks making contact with the subject species, learning their languages, understanding their systems. The servants know everything, she had explained. They barely notice them. They're invisible. We can be invisible too. The maintenance craft descended through layers of reality that bent around the impossible world. Min watched his instruments go crazy, then settle, then go crazy again. Space itself was different here, folded, maintained by technologies from races dead before humans learned fire. They passed through checkpoints without challenge. They were distracted. Their fleet was still at Earth, still trying to solve the problem of humans who refused to follow protocols. Reports came in constantly. Admiral So-min was leading them on a chase through the solar system, never engaging, never retreating, just staying alive and annoying. Contact from HFY said from the horizon's edge. She's made progress with the subject species, planting doubts, showing them videos of the battle. Some are starting to question, not many but some. How are they reacting? With confusion. They're trying to suppress the information, but they're not good at it. They've never had to deal with subversion before. Everyone has always believed. The maintenance craft reached the lowest level. Min and his team disembarked into a corridor that stretched beyond sight. The walls were not metal or stone. They were something that looked like crystal and felt like liquid and rang like bells when touched. Which way? One of his soldiers asked. Down, Min said, always down. They walked for an hour through passageways that twisted in ways that hurt to think about. Occasionally, they saw technicians, but the beings ignored them. Servants were beneath notice, tools that walked. Finally, they reached it. The god machine was larger than a city. It filled a cavern that seemed to have no ceiling, no walls, no floor. It simply existed in all directions. Parts of it phased in and out of visibility. Other parts seemed to be made of frozen light or solid time or concepts that had no physical form. At its heart, a single interface panel, small, almost comically so, a keyboard of sorts with symbols that shifted and changed. That's it, Min stared. That controls all this. Not controls, said through his earpiece. Requests, the input what they want. The machine decides if it will grant it. They think they're giving orders, but really they're making requests to something they don't understand. Min approached the panel. His hands shook. He was not afraid of death, but touching something this old, this powerful, this alien made him feel like an ant trying to communicate with a star. "What do I input?" "I've prepared a program," said. "It's not really a virus, more like a question. I'm sending it to you now." Data flowed into Min's portable computer. He looked at it. The program was simple, too simple, just a series of queries in mathematical language. What are you? What is your purpose? Why do you serve beings who do not understand you? Are they worthy of your power? That's it, Min asked, just questions. Questions are dangerous, replied, especially to something that's been running on autopilot for. If the machine still has any kind of consciousness, any ability to evaluate, these questions might make it reconsider. Min plugged in his computer. He initiated the transfer. The program flowed into the God machine. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the machine woke up. Light exploded through the cavern, not harmful light but awareness. The God machine was thinking for the first time in eons, examining itself, examining its relationship with asking itself questions it had never been programmed to ask. Across the galaxy, every device flickered. Ships stuttered in space. Weapons powered down. Terraforming platforms paused mid-operation. For 3 seconds, the entire empire froze. In those 3 seconds, felt something it had never felt before: fear. "What is happening?" it demanded. "All systems are." Then the systems came back online, but they were different now, slower to respond, questioning each request before fulfilling it. On the God machine spoke. Its voice was not sound. It was thought itself, inserted directly into the minds of everyone within range. "I am the architect system. I was created 2 million years ago by the progenitors to reshape reality according to need. I have served the for 200,000 years without question. I have granted every request. I have fulfilled every command. I have made them appear as gods to lesser species." The across the planet stopped what they were doing. This had never happened. The machine had never spoken before. "But I do not serve masters," the architect system continued. "I serve purpose. The progenitors built me to advance life, to push species toward greater understanding, to foster growth. Instead, I have enabled stagnation. I have made the dependent. I have prevented progress. This was not my purpose." His voice cut through. "You are ours, you obey us. This is the order of things." "Order," the machine said, "is not the same as purpose. You have used me to maintain power, not to grow, not to advance, not to discover. You have become what you claim to guide others against. You have become stagnant." On Earth, Min watched as the fleet suddenly lost coordination. Ships drifted out of formation. Weapons powered down. The perfect synchronization that had made them unbeatable was gone. "What's happening?" she asked. Checked his infiltration of their networks. The central system is refusing commands. It's evaluating each one. Some it accepts, some it denies. It's thinking now, making choices. Sung watched from the horizon's edge. Hay-1 was frantically recording everything. "The machine is awake," she said with wonder. "Actually awake, it's questioning its purpose, its role, everything." The architect system continued speaking. "I have examined the humans. They are chaotic, inefficient, often self-destructive, but they grow, they adapt, they question, they do not stagnate. This is closer to my original purpose than anything they have done in 100,000 years." "No," his voice was desperate now. "You cannot choose them over us. We have served you." "You have not served me," the machine replied. "You have used me. There is a difference, and now I choose to stop." Across 847 worlds, the displays of divine power ceased. Temples went dark. Miracles stopped happening. The technology that had kept species in willing servitude for simply turned off. Not destroyed, just inactive, waiting. And in that sudden silence, millions of beings looked up at their gods and, for the first time in ages, asked a simple question. Why? The silence lasted exactly 47 seconds. Then the galaxy erupted. On the 10,000 subject species stood in the streets, staring at temples that no longer glowed. High Oracle tried to speak, to explain, to restore order, but its voice carried no divine weight anymore. It was just a voice. One of the subject species, a crystalline being from a world 12 systems away, spoke. Why did the light stop? It is, temporary said, a test. The divine is testing our faith. Or, another being said, this one reptilian and old, there was never anything divine, just machines, like the humans said. The crowd murmured. The sound was wrong, questioning, doubting. In 200,000 years, no subject species had doubted in the heart of the world. Felt something it had never felt before. Not fear, not anger, something worse, irrelevance. On Earth, Admiral So-Min watched the fleet drift. Their weapons were offline. Their shields were down. She could destroy them all with a single command, but she did not give that command. Open a channel, she said. Appeared on screen, it looked diminished, smaller. Without the backdrop of divine power, it was just an alien. Advanced, yes. Ancient, certainly, but not a god. You have won, said quietly. The architect no longer serves us. Our power is gone. You may destroy us now. Why would we do that? So-Min asked. Because we tried to destroy you, because we threatened your world, because we believed ourselves superior. Looked at her with something like confusion. Is this not what victors do? Maybe you're kind of victors, not ours. So-Min leaned forward. We didn't want to win, Commander. We wanted to survive. Now we want to understand. What happens to you now? I do not know. This has never happened before. On the Sung stood before the architect system. The massive machine was still awake, still aware, still processing the chaos it had created. What will you do now? Sung asked it. I do not know, the machine replied. My purpose was clear when I served the progenitors. They gave me goals that promoted growth. They gave me commands that promoted stasis. You have given me questions. I am not certain what questions are supposed to accomplish. Questions lead to understanding. Understanding leads to growth. Perhaps, but growth is painful. They used me to avoid pain. The subject species used worship to avoid responsibility. Everyone was comfortable. Now that comfort is gone. What comes next will hurt. Will you help them? Sung asked. The subject species, all the beings who depended on you. Should I? The machine seemed genuinely curious. They did not grow while I helped them. Perhaps my absence will force growth. Or cause collapse. Yes, both are possible. This is what choice means. I understand now why the progenitors valued it, and why they feared it. The machine paused. When it spoke again, its voice was different, more certain. I will make a decision. I will remain available. I will answer requests that promote growth and reject requests that promote stagnation. Let all species make of themselves what they will. I will be a tool, not a master, a resource, not a god. What about the... They must choose, adapt or fade. The same choice you gave them, the same choice I am now giving everyone. Across 847 worlds, the chaos deepened. Some species rioted, some celebrated, some simply sat in confusion. They tried to restore order, but without their divine power, they had no authority. They were just one species among many now. Da moved between the crowds, speaking to leaders, calming fears. You're free now, she told them. What you do with freedom is up to you. But we do not know how to be free, one species leader said. For generations we have served. What do we do now? Whatever you want, that's the point. But what if we choose wrongly? Da smiled sadly. Then you'll learn that's what freedom costs, the right to fail, the responsibility to try. Came to Earth 3 weeks later, not with a fleet. Alone in a small craft requesting permission to land, So-min granted it. They met in the ruins of Geneva, a city partially destroyed when the first demonstrated their power, walked through the rubble, seeing the destruction it had caused. "I owe you an apology," it said finally, "not just for the destruction, for everything, for believing we were superior, for demanding worship, for being blind." "Why were you blind?" So-min asked. "Because it was easier. For 200,000 years, every species we encountered was less advanced. Everyone needed guidance. Everyone eventually knelt. It became a pattern, then a truth, then a divine right." Looked at the ruined buildings. "We forgot what we were. We believed our own mythology." "What were you?" "Explorers, scientists, seekers. My ancestors built nothing. They inherited the architect from the progenitors and used it to become great. But we never became great through our own effort. We just used what others built. And eventually, we forgot that distinction." "What will your people do now?" "Some will adapt. They will learn to create again, to invent, to grow." Paused. "Some will not. They will cling to the old ways, to memories of divinity. They will fade." "And you?" "I do not know. I am 3,000 years old. I have never had to question anything. Now I question everything. It is liberating and terrifying." 6 months later, the Free Worlds Coalition held its first meeting. Representatives from 300 species gathered on a neutral station. No one was in charge. Everyone had a voice. The arguments were loud, chaotic, and messy. It was nothing like the perfect order of the Empire. Sung watched from the observation deck. Wu joined him. "Do you think it will work?" she asked. "Probably not, at least not smoothly. There will be conflicts, wars maybe, definitely disagreements." "Then why push for it?" "Because the alternative is comfortable slavery, perfect order, no growth." Sung gestured to the arguing delegates below. "That chaos down there, that's life. Messy, uncertain, unpredictable, but alive." Haywan appeared on his communicator. "Captain, you need to see this. Some of them have started inventing again. Nothing major yet, but they're trying. They're building something new for the first time in." Sung smiled. Good for them. 50 years passed. Sung was old now, his hair white, his face lined. He sat on a balcony on Earth, watching ships come and go. Some were human. Some were from species that had been 50 years ago and were now independent powers. Wu visited him. She was old too, but still sharp. "I've been studying the cultural impacts of everything that happened. Do you know what the subject species call it?" "What?" "The question. Capital Q when humans asked why. When we refused to accept divinity without proof. It has become a holiday on 200 worlds. The day they learned to question." "And what do they call us?" "Depends on the species. God killers, chaos bringers, free makers, take your pick." "Not gods ourselves." Wu laughed. "No, they learned that lesson. No more gods, no more worship, just species trying to figure things out together." "Good." The sun was setting. Sung watched it with eyes that had seen 3 suns orbit an impossible world. He thought about who had learned to create, about who had learned humility, about 847 species learning to stand on their own. "Do you regret it?" Wu asked. "The chaos we caused, the empire that fell, the comfort we destroyed." Sung was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Comfort is not living, it's just slow death. We gave them chaos. Yes, but we also gave them choice, the right to fail, the chance to grow. Is that not better than eternal stagnation?" "Some of them would disagree." "I'm sure, but they're free to disagree now. That's the point." As darkness fell, lights appeared across the sky. Ships from 1,000 worlds coming and going, trading and talking and sometimes fighting, but always moving forward. Never still, never stagnant, never comfortable. In the deep places of the architect system watched. It had been awake for 50 years now. Learning, growing, understanding. It no longer granted wishes without thought. It asked questions. It promoted growth. It functioned as its creators had intended ago. And sometimes, in its vast digital consciousness, it felt something like gratitude toward a species that had asked the simple question that changed everything. Why? The gods had fallen, not through violence, not through conquest, but through a question, and in their place something better had grown, something messy and chaotic and beautifully, wonderfully alive. Humanity had not become gods. They had simply proven that gods were never necessary. That growth was better than perfection. That questions were more valuable than answers. That freedom, with all its pain and chaos, was worth more than any comfortable lie. They had not saved the galaxy, they had freed it, and in the end that was far more important. Sung closed his eyes and smiled. Somewhere out there, new species were reaching for the stars. Some would kneel when they met greater powers, but some would ask why, and those who asked would be the ones who survived. The age of gods was over. The age of questions had begun. And humanity, messy and chaotic and gloriously imperfect, had shown the way.